There are things that happen that remind me of the narcissist and how things played out. And I wanted to share this little story. A few days ago, I was coming home from work and I'm driving along, and this song comes on the radio, and it's an older country song. Alan Jackson, I think it's called I Don't Even Know Your Name. It's a catchy little funny tune about a guy who's drinking too much. The more he drinks, he sees this waitress, and he sees her as this beautiful woman. You know, she's plain, she's missing a tooth, she's average looking. But the more he drinks, the more he sees her through these beer goggles, I guess you could say. And she's becoming more and more beautiful to him. He's fallen in love with her. Well, toward the end of the video, he comes to himself. They're getting married. He raises the veil, and it's a completely different person he doesn't recognize. And it's the waitress. It's the same person, but it's just her in her real state. You know, that he hadn't noticed her because he was drunk. Well, it reminded me of the face of the narcissist, and how when you first meet them, you first get to know them, you're first, being lured in, you're kind of like you are drunk. You're drunk on the love bombing, you're drunk on the fascination, the enticement of something new and exciting. I'm talking from my own perspective. This is the way it was for me. I didn't see the things about him that we call red flags. Talking to him, he came to me at a time when I was vulnerable and was kind of questioning things in my life, and worried about my being single for the first time in a long time. And he shows up and he starts love bombing me and grooming me, and all I see is this great guy who's just so, I was so fascinated and enticed by him, and just so excited to get to know him, and I really never did. It's like the song, I'm in love with you, but I don't even know your name. That's the title of the song. Well, I knew his name. That was about all I knew. I was just remembering spending a little bit more time, and I thought getting to know each other, but of course I was getting to know the mirror. I was getting to know the things he wanted to make me believe, the fantasy he was selling me. I fell hard, and I wanted him, and I was that lady. I was going to chase him and get him, and I didn't really have to chase him. He was available to me, and then he wasn't. And very quickly, in a very short manner of time, he wasn't available to me. It all came to a very quick ending. And I just, I was thinking about that, and how we can talk about red flags all we want to. We can talk about catching these signals and signs and things. You can do that now that you know the things you know, and you may be very suspicious of everyone you meet from now on. You may never be able, hopefully you will be able to get close to someone and realize that there are people out there who are genuine and real, and who do tell you the truth, and who never wear a mask, whose face is their real face, whether it's a beautiful face or a plain face. It's the face that you fall in love with because you're falling in love with the real face. When you fall in love with the narcissist and their mask starts to crack. And one thing about that video that I wanted to really emphasize was at the scene where they're getting married, the man lifts up the woman's wedding veil and he sees her face, and it's someone he doesn't know at all. Well, that's very much like the narcissist. You have a moment. Hopefully you all have that moment, and I had that moment with my narcissist. I remember, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about what happened, but we were having a conversation, and he was telling me this story that I already knew to be false. It had some, And I know he's lying. I already know the story, and I already had learned the truth from other people. And I knew the truth, and I knew the story he was telling me was fake or made up. And we're sitting on the couch, on his couch, and we're sitting, and I'm looking at him talking, and he's not really looking at me. You know, the way that most people do when they're lying, they won't look you right in the face. But there was a moment when he turned to me and he looked at me as he's talking, and just for a minute our eyes met, and just for a minute he saw that I knew, and he realized that I knew. He realized that I knew everything he was saying was a lie. And I wasn't making like faces or like like say anything to make him think I didn't believe him. I'm just sitting there listening. But when he looked at me and he looked into my eyes, he let his guard down just enough that he really, for a minute, he was his true, authentic self. And he realized that I was on to him, that I saw his true face. And he starts scrambling, and he starts trying to he doesn't really know where to go with the rest of the story, because he knows that I'm already aware of it. The moment when he realized that I knew, he gave his tail sign away. And I'd seen him do this before, and I never really picked up on it. But if you watch people's mannerisms, everybody has little tics and little things that they do. And I've seen him do this many times. And I never really put two and two together. But one thing that he did that threw him off, that in that moment that I picked up on, was he took his hand and he put it down under his chin, like down his neck, under his ear. And the way a man will do when he's like getting a stubble, when he hasn't shaved recently and he's starting to get stubble, and he took his hand, he'd rub it up like he was rubbing his stubble, and he's rubbing his hand up his chin towards his ear, and like rubbing, and just like he's thinking, that's his way of stopping the conversation long enough to start scrambling for the changeover, to change the subject or to get out of that moment. And I knew. I mean, I already knew that, just about everything he says was a lie, and I didn't really believe anything he told me from the time we were still, involved. At this point, of course, I never expected to get the truth out of him. But that was a moment when his veil lifted. It was like when he turned and looked at me, the veil lifted, and I saw his true face, and he knew that I did. And from that moment on, there was nothing really ever the same between us. He never really tried to be the fake anymore. He just finally let himself be his true narcissistic self. He never put the mask back on again. And the treatment of me, I think maybe it was partially because he was maybe, I don't know if they feel embarrassment or shame. I don't know if they can feel it, but whatever it was that he felt, he wanted to take it out on me. So every time after that, when we would talk, he became more abusive, more like wanting to degrade me. It was like he was feeling degraded because of everything he'd lost or whatever had led to that happening in his life. He wanted to put that off on me, so he started treating me worse. But by then I was on to him, and I knew that he was so fake, and I had no desire to continue. And that's in a different story, that's a different part of the story, the ending, how everything ended. But I just wanted to share that and let people know that if you watch for little signs and mannerisms, when people are under pressure and under stress and are caught up in a lie, they will. And a narcissist is usually so adept and good at lying that you don't even pick up on it until you watch for it. And I really wasn't watching for it, but after he looked at me and our eyes met and that moment passed between us, I started picking up on it, and it made it so much easier for me to escape and get away from it. So I just wanted to share that. It was just a little something that was on my mind about the veil lifting, the mask falling off, the moment that you get it, that you finally pick it up and that you finally see it. And